In today's update, we're taking a closer, measured look at a growing narrative circulating among dinar watchers and financial observers. There is increasing speculation that the United States may at some point encourage Iraq to adjust its currency value, particularly as Iraq continues to modernize its financial system, strengthen currency controls, and deepen cooperation with international institutions like the IMF and the World Bank. While this idea is gaining traction in certain circles, it is essential to step back, analyze the facts carefully, and understand what is actually happening behind the scenes, and what it realistically means for the Iraqi dinar. Let's begin by breaking down the foundation of this discussion. Iraq has indeed been undergoing a series of financial and economic reforms over the past several years. These reforms are not sudden or isolated developments. They are part of a broader, long-term strategy aimed at stabilizing the economy, improving transparency, and integrating Iraq more fully into the global financial system. Key areas of focus have included banking sector reforms, anti-money laundering measures, currency regulation, and digitization of financial transactions. One of the most important developments has been the tightening of currency controls. Iraq has taken steps to regulate the flow of US dollars within its economy, particularly through the central bank's currency auction system. These measures are designed to combat illicit financial flows, reduce corruption, and ensure that foreign currency is used for legitimate trade and economic activity. While these changes may seem technical, they are actually critical building blocks for a more stable and credible financial system. At the same time, Iraq has been working closely with international institutions such as the IMF and the World Bank. These organizations typically provide guidance, technical assistance, and sometimes financial support to countries undergoing economic reform. Their involvement often signals that a country is committed to improving fiscal discipline, strengthening governance, and aligning with international best practices. However, it's important to understand that cooperation with these institutions does not automatically lead to a sudden or dramatic change in currency value. Now, let's address the idea that the United States might encourage Iraq to adjust its currency. From a geopolitical and economic standpoint, the US does have an interest in Iraq's stability and economic development. A stronger, more stable Iraqi economy can contribute to regional stability, improve trade relationships, and reduce reliance on external support. However, currency policy decisions are ultimately made by Iraq's own central bank and government, not by external actors. This distinction is crucial. While international partners can provide advice and support, they do not dictate exchange rate decisions. The Central Bank of Iraq operates with a degree of independence, and its primary mandate is to maintain price stability and support sustainable economic growth. Any adjustment to the currency would need to align with these goals and be based on domestic economic conditions, not external pressure. Another important point to consider is the lack of any official announcement regarding a major currency adjustment. Despite the growing speculation, there has been no confirmation from the Iraqi government or the central bank indicating that a significant revaluation or sudden change is imminent. In financial markets, official statements and policy announcements carry far more weight than rumors or interpretations of behind-the-scenes activity. This brings us to a key insight emphasized by many economists. If any change to the Iraqi dinar's value does occur, it is far more likely to be gradual rather than sudden. Gradual adjustments allow policymakers to monitor the impact on inflation, trade, and overall economic stability. Sudden, large-scale currency shifts can create volatility, disrupt markets, and lead to unintended consequences such as capital flight or inflation spikes. For Iraqi dinar followers, this distinction between gradual and sudden change is extremely important. Much of the speculation in online communities tends to focus on the idea of a rapid, dramatic revaluation that would significantly increase the currency's value overnight. However, this scenario is not consistent with how modern central banks typically operate. In reality, most currency adjustments happen incrementally, and are closely managed to minimize risk. In the short term, what we are likely to see is continued focus on reform rather than revaluation. Iraq's government and central bank are prioritizing structural improvements, strengthening institutions, improving financial transparency, and enhancing regulatory frameworks. These steps may not produce immediate changes in the exchange rate, but they are essential for building the foundation needed for any future adjustments. Short-term implications for the Iraqi dinar therefore remain relatively stable. The exchange rate is expected to be managed within a controlled range, with the central bank intervening as needed to maintain stability. This approach helps to anchor inflation expectations and provides a predictable environment for businesses and consumers. In the longer term, however, these reforms could have a more meaningful impact. As Iraq's financial system becomes more robust and integrated with global markets, the conditions for currency appreciation may gradually improve. Factors such as increased oil revenues, diversified economic activity, improved governance, and stronger foreign investment could all contribute to a more favorable outlook for the dinar. It's also worth noting that currency value is influenced by a wide range of variables, not just internal reforms. Global oil prices, geopolitical developments, regional stability, and international trade dynamics all play a role. Iraq's economy is heavily dependent on oil exports, so fluctuations in oil prices can have a significant impact on government revenues and overall economic health. Any long-term assessment of the dinar must take these external factors into account. Another layer to consider is investor sentiment. Confidence in a country's economy and financial system can influence capital flows and exchange rate dynamics. By working with institutions like the IMF and the World Bank, Iraq is signaling to the international community that it is committed to reform and transparency. Over time, this could help attract foreign investment and strengthen confidence in the economy. However, it is essential to approach this topic with realistic expectations. While the directions of reform is positive, progress takes time. Economic transformation does not happen overnight, and currency values do not shift dramatically without strong underlying fundamentals. For viewers and followers of the Iraqi dinar, patience and a clear understanding of economic principles are key. Let's also address the idea that these developments have been happening quietly behind the scenes. In many ways, this is accurate. Much of the work involved in financial reform is technical and does not always make headlines. Regulatory changes, system upgrades, compliance measures, and institutional coordination are often implemented gradually and without public attention. However, this does not mean that there is a hidden or sudden event waiting to be announced. It simply reflects the nature of economic policy implementation. Transparency remains an important factor. When significant policy decisions are made, particularly those affecting the currency, central banks typically communicate clearly with the public and the markets. This helps to manage expectations and maintain stability. The absence of such communication is a strong indication that no major change has been finalized. For those closely following the Iraqi dinar, the key takeaway is to focus on verifiable information and credible sources. Official statements from the Central Bank of Iraq, government announcements, and reports from reputable international organizations should be the primary basis for analysis. Speculation and unverified claims can be misleading and may not reflect the actual economic situation. As we look ahead, the trajectory of Iraq's economy will continue to be shaped by its reform efforts. Strengthening the banking sector, improving fiscal management, and enhancing transparency are all positive steps. If these efforts are sustained, they could create a more stable and resilient economic environment, which in turn could support a stronger currency over time. At the same time, challenges remain. Iraq faces issues such as political uncertainty, infrastructure needs, and reliance on oil revenues. Addressing these challenges will be critical for achieving long-term economic stability and growth. Currency value is ultimately a reflection of economic fundamentals, and those fundamentals must be strengthened through consistent policy and reform. In summary, while there is growing discussion about the possibility of a currency adjustment, the current evidence points to a gradual, reform-driven process rather than a sudden change. Iraq's collaboration with international institutions, its efforts to modernize the financial system, and its tightening of currency controls are all important developments. However, they are part of a broader strategy aimed at long-term stability, not immediate revaluation. For Iraqi dinar followers, this means maintaining a balanced perspective. The progress being made is meaningful, but it should be viewed within the context of a long-term economic transition. Expectations of rapid or dramatic currency shifts are not supported by current policy signals or economic analysis. As always, staying informed through reliable sources and understanding the broader economic context will provide the most accurate picture of what is happening with the Iraqi dinar. The situation continues to evolve, and we will keep monitoring developments closely to bring you factual and responsible updates. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more balanced and credible Iraqi dinar news. And remember that this content is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice.